Lisa stared at her phone screen, reading the text message for the third time. Her best friend Kate had just sent her something that made absolutely no sense. My brother wants to take you to dinner next Friday. He says he has a business opportunity to discuss with you. Are you free? Lisa set her phone down on her desk and looked around her small cubicle at the marketing agency, where she worked as a graphic designer. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and she could hear her coworkers typing away at their keyboards. Everything was normal except for this weird message that had just turned her day upside down. Kate's brother? The only time Lisa had met him was at Kate's birthday party 2 years ago, and then briefly at a family barbecue last summer. He had seemed nice enough, but they had barely exchanged more than polite conversation. She remembered him being tall, well-dressed, and somewhat quiet. Kate had mentioned he worked in technology, but Lisa hadn't paid much attention to the details. Her phone buzzed again. Kate was calling. "Hey, what's this about your brother wanting to have dinner with me?" Lisa asked without even saying hello. "I know it sounds random," Kate laughed on the other end, "but he specifically asked for your number yesterday. He said he had a business idea that might interest you." "What kind of business idea?" "I'm just a graphic designer at a small agency. I don't know anything about tech stuff. I honestly don't know the details. You know how private he is about his work." But he seemed really serious about it. "He even asked me what kind of restaurants you like." Lisa leaned back in her chair, still confused. "Kate, this is weird. Why would your brother suddenly want to discuss business with me?" "We've met like twice. Maybe he needs some design work for one of his companies." "You're really talented, Lisa. Maybe I showed him some of your portfolio work at some point." That was possible, Lisa thought. Kate was always proud of her friend's work and liked to show it off. But still, something felt off about the whole thing. "What should I tell him?" Kate asked. Lisa looked at her computer screen where she was working on yet another boring brochure for a local dentist's office. Her bank account was practically empty. Her student loans were crushing her every month, and she had been dreaming of starting her own design business for years. If Kate's brother really did have a legitimate business opportunity, maybe she should at least hear him out. "Okay, fine. Tell him yes. But somewhere public and I'm driving myself? Perfect. I'll text you the details." After hanging up, Lisa couldn't focus on her work. She kept thinking about the strange invitation. Kate's brother had always seemed successful, but Lisa had never really thought much about what he actually did for work. That evening, curiosity got the better of her and she decided to do some research. She started by looking up Kate's last name online, adding technology and business to her search. What she found made her nearly drop her laptop. Kate's brother wasn't just successful. He was incredibly wealthy. The articles she found described him as a tech entrepreneur who had built a software company worth billions of dollars. There were photos of him at charity events, business conferences, and award ceremonies. The numbers she was reading didn't seem real. Forbes estimated his net worth at over $2 billion. Lisa felt her stomach flip. This couldn't be right. She grabbed her phone and called Kate back. "Kate, your brother is really rich, isn't he?" "Well, yeah. I mean, his company does really well." "Why? I just looked him up online. It says he's worth billions of dollars." "Billions, Kate!" Kate was quiet for a moment. "Oh, right. I guess I forget that not everyone knows. Our family doesn't really talk about money stuff. He's just my annoying older brother to me. And this billionaire wants to have dinner with me to discuss business? Kate, that's insane. People like him don't just randomly invite people like me to dinner." "Lisa, you're being dramatic. He's still just a regular person. Maybe he really does need design work. Or maybe he's looking to invest in creative businesses. You won't know unless you go." After they hung up, Lisa spent the rest of the evening reading everything she could find about him online. Most of the articles focused on his business success and his company's innovative software solutions. He seemed to avoid personal interviews, and there were very few photos of him at social events. The few personal details she could find painted him as intensely private, incredibly smart, and someone who valued family above everything else. The more she read, the more confused she became. This was someone who probably met with CEOs and government officials, not small-town graphic designers who could barely afford their rent. What could he possibly want to discuss with her? The next few days crawled by. Lisa found herself distracted at work, wondering what Friday's dinner would bring. She told her roommate about the situation. who immediately started joking that maybe the billionaire had fallen in love with Lisa from afar, and this was all an elaborate setup. That only happens in movies. Lisa laughed, but part of her wondered if there was more to this invitation than a simple business discussion. Thursday night. Lisa stood in front of her closet trying to figure out what to wear to dinner with a billionaire. She didn't own anything fancy enough for the expensive restaurant he had chosen, but she settled on her best black dress and the one pair of heels that didn't hurt her feet. She barely slept that night. Her mind kept spinning with possibilities. Maybe he really did want to hire her for design work. Maybe he was starting a new company and needed creative input. Maybe Kate had talked him into helping Lisa start her own business. Or maybe this was all some kind of mistake, and he had confused her with someone else. Friday evening arrived faster than Lisa wanted it to. She drove to the restaurant, her hands shaking slightly on the steering wheel. The place was definitely fancier than anywhere she usually ate. Valet parking, cloth napkins, the kind of place where entrees cost more than she usually spent on groceries in a week. She gave her name to the hostess and was led to a quiet table in the back corner of the restaurant. He was already there, standing politely as she approached. He looked exactly like she remembered, but somehow more intimidating in this setting. "Thank you for coming," he said, pulling out her chair. "I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me." "Of course," Lisa replied, sitting down and trying to calm her nerves. "Though I have to admit I'm really curious about this business opportunity you mentioned." He smiled, but there was something nervous about it. "Let's order first and then we can talk." As Lisa looked at the menu, with its expensive dishes and wine list longer than most books she had read, she couldn't shake the feeling that this dinner was going to change her life in ways she couldn't even imagine. The waiter brought their appetizers, but Lisa barely touched hers. She was too focused on trying to figure out why Kate's brother seemed so nervous. For someone who supposedly ran board meetings with major corporations, he was fidgeting with his napkin and avoiding eye contact. "So," Lisa said, setting down her fork, "tell me about this business opportunity." He took a sip of his wine and cleared his throat. "Actually, before we get to that, I'd love to know more about you. Kate talks about you all the time, but I'd like to hear things from your perspective." Lisa raised an eyebrow. This wasn't how she had expected a business dinner to start. "What do you want to know?" "Everything, really. What you're passionate about, what your goals are. What's important to you in life." "That's a pretty broad question for a business meeting," Lisa said, starting to feel even more confused. "Right, sorry. I guess I'm not great at this." He ran his hand through his hair, looking genuinely frustrated with himself. "Let me start over. What made you want to become a graphic designer?" Despite her confusion, Lisa found herself relaxing a little. She started talking about her love for visual storytelling, how she had always been drawn to creating things that could make people feel something. She told him about her dreams of starting her own agency someday, about the projects she was most proud of, about the challenges of working in a creative field where money was always tight. As she talked, she noticed he was listening intently, asking thoughtful questions and seeming genuinely interested in her answers. It felt more like a conversation with an old friend than a business meeting. "What about family?" he asked as their main courses arrived. "Are you close with yours?" "Very close. My parents live about 2 hours away. They're both teachers, retired now. My dad has been dealing with some health issues lately, which has been stressful for all of us." Lisa paused, wondering why she was sharing such personal information. "Why do you ask?" "Family is everything to me," he said simply. "It's the most important thing in my life, more important than business or money or anything else." "Kate always said you guys were close." "We are. Our grandmother practically raised us after our parents died in a car accident when I was 16, and Kate was 12. She's the strongest person I've ever known." His voice softened when he talked about her. "She taught us everything about loyalty, about taking care of the people you love, about doing the right thing even when it's hard." Lisa felt a wave of sympathy. She had never known that about Kate's family. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was. But it also made us who we are today. Everything I've accomplished, every decision I make, it all comes back to family and the values she taught us. They continued talking through dinner, but Lisa noticed he kept steering the conversation back to her personal life. He asked about her thoughts on marriage, whether she wanted children someday, what kind of life she envisioned for herself. When she asked him the same questions, he gave thoughtful answers, but always seemed more interested in hearing her responses. By the time dessert arrived, Lisa's patience was wearing thin. Okay, I have to ask, what's really going on here? Because this doesn't feel like a business dinner at all. He set down his coffee cup and looked directly at her for the first time all evening. You're right. I need to be honest with you. He took a deep breath. There is no business opportunity. Lisa felt her stomach drop. What? I'm sorry. I know I should have been upfront from the beginning, but I didn't know how else to approach this situation. What situation? What are you talking about? He was quiet for a long moment, clearly struggling with what to say next. Lisa, I've been following your life for the past 2 years. Excuse me? Lisa's voice came out sharper than she intended, and a few people at nearby tables glanced over. Not in a creepy way, he said quickly, holding up his hands. Through Kate, she talks about you constantly. She shows me pictures from your adventures together, tells me about your work, your dreams, your struggles, and somewhere along the way I started to... He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. Started to what? I started to care about you. I know how that sounds, especially since we barely know each other. But hearing about your kindness, your creativity, the way you take care of everyone around you, the way you never give up even when things are tough, I found myself thinking about you more and more. Lisa stared at him, completely speechless. This was not at all what she had expected when she agreed to this dinner. I know this is overwhelming, he continued, and I know it probably sounds crazy, but there's more I need to tell you, and it's complicated. More complicated than finding out that my best friend's billionaire brother has been essentially stalking me through social media. Yes, actually. He looked pained. My grandmother is dying. The anger Lisa had been building up suddenly deflated. Oh, I'm so sorry. She has maybe 6 months left, probably less. And she has one wish before she dies. She wants to see me married. Lisa blinked, trying to process this information. Okay. For the past 5 years, she's been asking me to settle down, to find someone who shares our family's values and start a family of my own. She's worried that after she's gone, I'll be alone, that I'll throw myself into work and forget about the things that really matter. That's understandable, I guess. I've brought women home before, women I thought she might approve of, but she's always found something wrong with them. Too focused on money. Not genuine enough, not someone who would truly love our family. He paused. But then Kate started talking about you, and my grandmother became convinced that you were different. Lisa felt like her head was spinning. Wait, your grandmother knows about me? Kate doesn't know this, but I've been sharing some of the stories she tells me about you. The time you drove 8 hours to help her when she had that car accident. The way you always remember everyone's birthdays. How you spent your entire savings to help your parents when your dad was in the hospital. The more my grandmother heard, the more convinced she became that you were exactly the kind of person she hoped I would find. But I've never even met your grandmother. I know. That's part of the problem. He leaned forward, his expression serious. Lisa, my grandmother is the family matriarch. She controls a significant portion of my inheritance, but more importantly, she controls the family foundation that manages our charitable giving. If I don't fulfill her dying wish, everything goes to distant relatives who will probably just waste it all. Lisa was starting to understand where this conversation was heading, and she didn't like it. What exactly are you asking me? I need to get married soon, and my grandmother has basically decided that you're the only acceptable option. Are you insane? Lisa's voice rose again, and this time she didn't care who heard her. You can't just decide to marry someone you barely know because your grandmother told you to. I know how it sounds, but Lisa, there's something else you need to understand. This isn't just about fulfilling her wish. Over these past 2 years, listening to Kate talk about you, I've developed real feelings. Genuine feelings. And I think if you gave us a chance, we might actually be good together. Lisa stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I need some air. Lisa, wait. Please just let me explain everything before you leave. She sat back down, but her whole body was tense. You have 5 minutes. What I'm about to propose might sound crazy, but I need you to hear me out completely before you respond, okay? Lisa nodded, though every instinct was telling her to run. I want to ask you to marry me. Lisa felt like the restaurant had suddenly become completely silent, even though she could hear the normal sounds of clinking glasses and quiet conversation around them. She stared at him, waiting for him to tell her this was all some elaborate joke. Before you say anything, he continued quickly, please let me explain what I'm actually proposing. You just asked me to marry you. I think that's pretty clear. It's not what you think. I'm not asking you to marry me because I'm madly in love with you and want to sweep you off your feet. I'm asking you to enter into a marriage agreement that would benefit both of us. Lisa leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. A marriage agreement. Think of it as a business contract, but one between two people who genuinely like and respect each other. You would marry me, help me fulfill my grandmother's wish, and in return, I would provide you with financial security that would change your life completely. How much financial security are we talking about? $10 million up front the day after we get married. Lisa nearly choked on her water. 10 million? Plus I would pay off all your student loans immediately. I'd buy you a house wherever you want to live. I'd make sure your parents have the best medical care available and enough money to retire comfortably. You'd never have to worry about money again. The numbers were so large that Lisa couldn't even process them properly. $10 million was more money than she could spend in several lifetimes. Her student loans alone were crushing her with payments she could barely afford each month. And what would you get out of this arrangement? I'd get to fulfill my grandmother's dying wish. I'd secure my inheritance, which includes control of our family foundation. And honestly, I'd get to spend time with someone I believe is a genuinely good person. For how long? 2 years. Long enough for my grandmother to see me settled and happy. Long enough for her to pass away peacefully knowing I'm taken care of. After that, we could divorce quietly and you'd keep everything I gave you. Lisa's mind was racing. This was absolutely insane. People didn't just get married for business reasons, especially not to people they barely knew. But at the same time, the practical side of her brain was calculating what this could mean for her life. Her parents had been struggling financially ever since her father's heart attack. They were both retired teachers, and their pensions barely covered their basic expenses, let alone the medical bills that kept piling up. Her mother had been talking about going back to work, even though she was 68 years old, and Lisa herself had been dreaming of starting her own design agency for years, but she could never save enough money to make it happen. Every month, her student loan payments ate up most of her income, leaving her just enough to cover rent and groceries. "This is crazy," she said finally. "I know it is, but crazy doesn't always mean wrong. You're asking me to fake a marriage to a man I don't know, to lie to your dying grandmother, to pretend to be in love for 2 years. I'm not asking you to pretend to be in love. I'm asking you to be yourself, to be the kind, caring person that Kate always describes. My grandmother doesn't need grand romantic gestures. She needs to see that I'm with someone who has good values, someone who will take care of me and be a good partner. And you think I'm that person based on stories your sister tells you? I think you might be, and I think these 2 years could give us a chance to find out for sure." Lisa was quiet for a long moment, trying to process everything he had said. What if we hate each other? What if we're completely incompatible? Then we'll be incompatible for 2 years and then we'll go our separate ways. You'll still have the money, still have the house, still have your parents taken care of. What if you fall in love with someone else during those 2 years? That's a risk I'm willing to take. What about you? What if you meet someone you want to be with? Lisa hadn't thought about that. I don't know. I guess we'd have to figure that out if it happened. There's something else you should know, he said, his voice becoming more serious. This isn't just about money for me. Over the past 2 years, hearing about your life, I've started to wonder if you might be someone I could actually have a real relationship with. This arrangement would give us a chance to find out without the pressure of traditional dating. You're saying you might actually want to stay married after 2 years? I'm saying it's possible. If we discover we're compatible, if we develop real feelings for each other, then we could make this marriage real. We could renegotiate the financial arrangements to be more equal, start planning a life together. Lisa felt overwhelmed. This was so far outside anything she had ever imagined happening in her life. I need time to think about this. Of course. Take as much time as you need. How much time do I have? My grandmother's health is declining quickly. If we're going to do this, we'd need to be engaged within the next few weeks and married within 2 months. 2 months? I know it's fast, but Lisa, I want you to understand something. I'm not asking you to sacrifice yourself for my benefit. I genuinely believe this could be good for both of us. You'd have financial freedom to pursue your dreams, to take care of your family, to never worry about money again, and I'd have a chance to get to know someone who might actually understand what family means. Lisa looked around the restaurant. At all the normal people having normal dinners and normal conversations about normal things. None of them were sitting across from billionaires who were proposing marriage contracts. "This feels like something out of a movie," she said. "I know, but sometimes life is stranger than movies. What would people think? Your friends, your business associates, Kate?" Kate would be thrilled. "She's been telling me for years that I need to settle down. As for everyone else, they don't need to know the details. As far as the world is concerned, we met through Kate, fell in love, and decided to get married. And your grandmother? Would she know the truth? Absolutely not. This would only work if she believes it's real. You'd have to meet her, spend time with her, convince her that you care about me and about our family." Lisa thought about her own grandmother, who had passed away 3 years earlier. She remembered how much it had meant to her grandmother to see Lisa happy and settled. If she had been dying and had one last wish, Lisa would have done almost anything to fulfill it. "I don't know if I'm a good enough actress to pull this off." "You wouldn't be acting. You'd be yourself, and honestly, I think my grandmother would love you just for who you are." The waiter approached their table, clearly wanting to know if they needed anything else. The restaurant was starting to empty out, and Lisa realized they had been talking for over 2 hours. "I should go," she said, reaching for her purse. "Let me drive you home." "No, I drove myself. I need some time alone to think about all this." He signaled for the check and paid quickly, leaving a generous tip. As they walked toward the restaurant exit, Lisa felt like she was in a dream. "Lisa," he said as they reached her car, "I know this is a lot to process, but I want you to know that I respect you too much to pressure you into anything. If you decide this isn't right for you, I'll understand completely. And if I say yes, then we'll take it one day at a time and see what happens." Lisa got into her car and drove home in silence, her mind spinning with everything that had happened. When she finally made it to her apartment, she sat in her car for another 20 minutes, trying to convince herself that the evening had actually happened. Her phone buzzed with a text from Kate. "How did dinner go? Did you and my brother talk about anything interesting?" Lisa stared at the message, not sure how to even begin to answer. Instead, she turned off her phone and went inside, knowing that she had the biggest decision of her life to make. Lisa barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard his voice saying $10 million and "marry me." She kept thinking she would wake up and realize the whole evening had been some kind of stress-induced dream. But when morning came, the business card he had given her was still sitting on her nightstand, real and solid and proof that everything had actually happened. She called in sick to work. There was no way she could focus on designing brochures and logos when her entire world had been turned upside down. Instead, she spent the morning pacing around her small apartment, trying to make sense of everything. The rational part of her brain kept listing all the reasons this was a terrible idea. She barely knew him. Marriage was supposed to be about love, not business arrangements. What if he turned out to be controlling or cruel? What if his family didn't accept her? What if she couldn't convince his grandmother that their relationship was real? But another part of her brain kept calculating what $10 million could do for her life. She could pay off her student loans, which would free up almost $800 a month. She could buy her parents a nice house near good doctors. She could start her own design agency and never have to worry about where her next client was coming from. By afternoon, she couldn't stand being alone with her thoughts anymore. She needed to talk to someone, but she couldn't tell Kate about this. The whole situation would put Kate in an impossible position between her brother and her best friend. Instead, she called her older sister Amy, who lived across the country in California. "Lisa, what a nice surprise. How are things going?" "Amy, I need to ask you something hypothetical." "Okay, shoot. If someone offered you $10 million to marry them for 2 years, would you do it?" Amy was quiet for a moment. "That's a very specific hypothetical. Are you writing a story or something?" "Just to humor me." "Would you do it?" "I don't know. It would depend on the person, I guess. Are they dangerous? Are they asking me to do anything illegal or immoral? Do I have any other options?" Lisa realized she hadn't really considered whether Kate's brother might be dangerous. She had been so focused on the money and the craziness of the situation that she hadn't really thought about her safety. What if it was someone you barely knew, but they seemed nice enough? And what if you really needed the money? "Lisa, what's going on? This doesn't sound hypothetical anymore." Lisa took a deep breath and told her sister everything. About the dinner, the proposal, the dying grandmother, all of it. Amy listened without interrupting, which Lisa appreciated. "Wow," Amy said when Lisa finished. That's really something. Tell me I'm crazy for even considering it. Are you considering it? I don't know. Maybe. The money would solve every financial problem our family has ever had. Money isn't everything, Lisa. Easy for you to say. You're married to a doctor. You don't have to choose between buying groceries and making your student loan payment. Amy was quiet for a moment. You're right. I'm sorry. I don't understand the financial pressure you're under. Mom called me last week. She's thinking about going back to work because Dad's medical bills are getting so expensive. She's 68 years old, Amy. She should be enjoying retirement, not worrying about how to pay for Dad's heart medication. I could help more with Mom and Dad's expenses. You already help. You have your own family to take care of. This isn't your responsibility, and it's not yours either. Lisa knew her sister was right, but that didn't change how she felt. Their parents had sacrificed so much to put both their daughters through college. They deserved better than to spend their retirement years stressed about money. What do you know about this guy? Amy asked. Not much. Kate always talks about how close their family is, how much he loves his grandmother. I looked him up online and he seems legitimate. His company has a good reputation. He's involved in charity work. There aren't any scandals or anything like that, but you've only met him twice, I know. That's the crazy part. I'm considering marrying someone I don't even know. What does your gut tell you? Lisa thought about that. During dinner, despite her confusion and shock, she had found him easy to talk to. He had listened carefully to everything she said, asked thoughtful questions, seemed genuinely interested in her answers. There had been something vulnerable about him, too, especially when he talked about his grandmother. I think he's probably a good person, she said finally, but that doesn't mean we're compatible or that this would work. You said he mentioned that you might actually develop real feelings for each other. What did you think about that? I don't know. It's hard to imagine falling in love with someone under these circumstances. But then again, arranged marriages work out sometimes, right? Sometimes. But those are usually based on shared culture and family connections. This would be different. Lisa spent the rest of the week in a fog. She went to work, came home, and spent her evenings researching everything she could find about him and his company. The more she learned, the more legitimate everything seemed. His business was highly successful and well regarded. His charitable foundation supported education and healthcare initiatives. In interviews, he came across as thoughtful and principled. She also found herself paying more attention to Kate's casual mentions of her brother. Kate had always spoken fondly of him, describing him as protective, generous, and completely devoted to their grandmother. According to Kate, he visited their grandmother every Sunday without fail, and he had personally paid for the best medical care when she got sick. He's been so worried about Grandma lately, Kate mentioned over coffee on Thursday. I think he feels responsible for making sure she's happy in her final months. That must be really hard for him, Lisa said, feeling guilty for having inside information. It is. I keep telling him he needs to find someone to share his life with. He works too much and doesn't date enough. I think he's going to end up alone if he's not careful. Lisa almost choked on her coffee. Maybe he'll meet someone soon. On Friday, exactly 1 week after their dinner, he called her. Hi, Lisa. I hope I'm not bothering you. No, it's fine. I was just getting home from work. I wanted to check in and see how you're doing. I know I gave you a lot to think about. That's an understatement. Have you made any decisions? Lisa looked around her apartment. The stack of bills on her kitchen counter seemed to mock her. Her laptop was open to an email from her mother, casually mentioning that they might need to cancel their planned visit next month because money was tight. I need to ask you some questions first. Of course, ask me anything. What would this marriage actually look like day to day? Would we live together? Would you expect me to act like a real wife? We would need to live together at least part of the time to make it convincing. But we could have separate bedrooms, separate lives in many ways. I wouldn't expect anything physical from you unless you wanted that. What about holidays and family events? You'd need to come to some of them, especially anything involving my grandmother. But I'd do my best to make you feel comfortable and included. And after 2 years? After 2 years, we could quietly divorce and you'd be free to live your life however you want. Or if things worked out between us, we could choose to stay together and make it a real marriage. Lisa took a deep breath. I need to meet your grandmother before I make any decision. Really? If I'm going to do this, if I'm going to help fulfill her dying wish, I need to know what kind of person she is. I need to see if I could actually care about her. That's, that's actually a really good idea. Would this weekend work? This weekend. She's having a good day today, but we never know how tomorrow will be. If you're serious about considering this, sooner is better than later. Lisa felt her heart racing. This was really happening. She was actually considering this insane proposal. Okay, this weekend, Lisa. Yeah, thank you. Just for considering this, for being willing to meet her. It means more to me than you know. After they hung up, Lisa sat on her couch and tried to imagine what she would tell her grandmother's dying grandmother about why she wanted to marry her grandson. The thought terrified her. But then she thought about her own parents, about the sacrifices they had made for her, about the worry lines that had appeared on her mother's face since her father's heart attack. She thought about her own dreams, about the design agency she wanted to start, about the freedom that $10 million would bring. Maybe sometimes the right decision was the one that scared you the most. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzly, matching Lisa's mood perfectly. She had changed her outfit 3 times, trying to find something that said, "I'm a nice person who would be good for your grandson," without looking like she was trying too hard. The drive to his grandmother's house took 45 minutes, giving Lisa plenty of time to rehearse what she might say. But every conversation she imagined felt fake and awkward. How do you talk to someone about marrying their grandson when you've never even been on a real date with him? The house was beautiful but not flashy, a large colonial with well-maintained gardens. He was waiting for her on the front porch, looking as nervous as she felt. "How are you feeling?" he asked as she walked up the steps. "Terrified. You?" "Same. She's really excited to meet you. I told her Kate's been talking about you for years and that I finally worked up the courage to ask you out." "And she believed that?" "She said it was about time I stopped being so shy around pretty girls." Despite her nerves, Lisa smiled. "She sounds like she has a sense of humor." "She does. That's one of the things I love most about her." They went inside and Lisa was immediately struck by how warm and welcoming the house felt. There were family photos everywhere, fresh flowers on the tables, and the smell of something delicious baking in the kitchen. "She's in the sunroom," he said, leading Lisa through the house. "Fair warning, she's going to ask you a lot of questions. She's very protective of me. Should I be worried? Just be yourself. That's all you need to do." The sunroom was bright and cheerful, filled with plants and comfortable furniture. His grandmother was sitting in a recliner with a blanket over her legs, and Lisa was surprised by how small and frail she looked. In her mind, she had imagined someone more intimidating. "Grandma, this is Lisa, the friend of Kate's I told you about." The elderly woman's face lit up with genuine joy. "Lisa! Oh my goodness, you're even more beautiful than Kate's pictures showed. Come here, dear, let me get a good look at you." Lisa approached slowly, immediately feeling the warmth radiating from this woman. When she took Lisa's hands, her grip was surprisingly strong. Sit down, sit down. I want to hear everything about you. Kate has told me wonderful stories, but I want to hear them from you." For the next 2 hours, Lisa found herself in the most natural conversation she'd had in weeks. His grandmother asked about her work, her family, her dreams, and seemed genuinely interested in every answer. She shared stories about raising her grandchildren, about the values that were important to their family, about her hopes for their futures. "I worry about him. You know," she said, glancing at her grandson, who had been mostly quiet, letting the women get to know each other. "He works too hard, doesn't take enough time for the important things in life." "What do you think the important things are?" Lisa asked. "Family, love, taking care of the people who matter to you, building something that lasts longer than money or success." She reached over and patted Lisa's hand. "Kate tells me you understand those things." Lisa felt a stab of guilt. This woman was so genuine, so full of love for her family, and here Lisa was considering lying to her for money. "I do think family is the most important thing," Lisa said, and she meant it. "I can tell. I can always tell when someone has a good heart." After lunch, his grandmother excused herself for a nap and he walked Lisa out to her car. "She likes you," he said. "I like her too. She's wonderful, she is. She's the best person I've ever known." He paused. "What do you think? Could you see yourself spending time with her, being part of our family?" Lisa looked back at the house, thinking about the woman inside who was facing her final months with such grace and dignity. "Yes, I could. Actually, I think I'd enjoy it. So what do you think about everything else?" Lisa had been dreading this moment all week, but standing there looking at him, thinking about his grandmother's kind face and warm hands, Something clicked into place. I want to do it. But I have some conditions. His eyebrows shot up. Conditions? Yes, if we're going to do this, I want to do it right. I don't want this to be a cold business arrangement where we're just counting down the days until we can divorce. What do you mean? I mean, I want us to actually try to be friends. Real friends. I want us to get to know each other, spend time together, see if we actually like each other as people. I'd like that too. And I want to be honest with your grandmother about one thing. Not about the arrangement, but about our timeline. I want to tell her that we're taking things slowly, getting to know each other. That way, if we do develop real feelings, it won't seem sudden. That makes sense. Or there's something else. If we do this, if we spend 2 years together and we actually fall in love, I want the option to stay married for real. Not because of money or contracts, but because we choose each other. I was hoping you'd say that. And if that happens, we renegotiate everything. The money, the house, all of it. I don't want to be bought and paid for. I want to be an equal partner. Absolutely. Lisa took a deep breath. Okay then. Let's do this crazy thing. He smiled, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked completely relaxed. Really? Really? But we're going to take our time with everything. I want us to date properly, even if we're already planning to get married. I want to know who you are when you're not nervous about proposing fake marriages to strangers. I'd like that too. I think I'm probably more fun when I'm not terrified. I hope so, because that dinner last week wasn't exactly charming. He laughed, and Lisa realized she liked the sound of it. I promise to be more charming going forward. Good, because your grandmother is going to expect you to sweep me off my feet. They stood there for a moment, looking at each other, and Lisa felt a flutter of something that might have been excitement. This was insane, absolutely crazy, but maybe crazy was exactly what her life needed. So what happens now? She asked. Now we start dating. Real dating. I take you to dinner, we go to movies, we figure out if we actually like spending time together. And then if things go well, I ask you to marry me for real. In front of my grandmother with a ring, the whole thing. And then we plan a wedding. A small one. Just family and close friends. Kate's going to be so shocked. Kate's going to be thrilled. She's been telling me for years that I need to ask you out. Lisa laughed. She has not, think she has. She always said you were exactly the kind of person I should be with. Smart, creative, family-oriented, not impressed by money. Well, she was right about the money part. What changed your mind? About all this? Lisa thought about his grandmother's warm smile, about the way he had talked about family being the most important thing, about the stack of bills on her kitchen counter and her parents' worried faces. I realized that sometimes the scariest decisions are the ones that make the most sense, and I think your grandmother deserves to see you happy before she dies. Even if it's not entirely real, Lisa considered this. I don't think it has to be fake. I think we could make it real if we want to. Do you want to? I want to try. I want to see what happens when two people who barely know each other decide to build something together. That's all I can ask for. 6 months later, Lisa stood in a small church wearing her grandmother's wedding dress, looking at a man she had come to know as funny, thoughtful, and completely devoted to his family. His grandmother sat in the front row, beaming with joy and looking stronger than she had in months. As they exchanged vows, Lisa realized that somewhere along the way, the arrangement had become real. She wasn't marrying him for money anymore. She was marrying him because she had fallen in love with his quiet strength, his terrible jokes, and the way he brought her coffee every morning without being asked. Do you take this man to be your husband? The minister asked. Lisa looked into his eyes and saw her future there. I do. Later, at the small reception, his grandmother pulled Lisa aside. I know you two started as friends, she said quietly, but I can see real love when I see it. You're going to make each other very happy. Lisa squeezed her hand, thinking about how sometimes the most unexpected proposals lead to the most authentic love stories. I think so too, she said, and she meant every word.